My name is Jennifer Tosch. I'm the founder of Black Heritage Amsterdam Tours. But really, I'm a time traveler. Can you all hear me okay? I'm a time traveler. Ever since I was a little girl, I used to transport myself to faraway places, different times, imagining myself doing something completely different than I was doing. Part of it was because my childhood was painful, and I wanted to transport myself to someplace else. I remember when I was about 12 years old. Am I clicking because of this? Oh, darn it. Well, it is what it is. I was 12 years old, and I would try to imagine what the year 2000 was going to be like. Most of you were teenagers then. And I would just fantasize about that time until the year 2000 came. And then I was 36. And then I said, I'm going to fantasize about the year 2030, and I'll be in my mid-60s by then. For the next 10 minutes, I just want to take you on a journey with me. I want you to be my fellow time travelers. I want us to go on a trip back in time and look for what the sketches of the future is going to look like together. My hope is that by the time we get to the end of this journey, that we will have created this new vision of the future. And part of that vision is that we have a shared story, and part of it is my personal story. Are you all ready? We're going to board our boat. All right, let's go. I want to start with the first stop is, how did I get here? 2 years ago when I came to the Netherlands, I came in search of answers. I came in search of answers and to study. I wanted to learn more about my family's history, my family heritage, and especially about my mother, who grew up here in Holland. I wanted to understand what she experienced as a 14-year-old girl in a very strange place as a young black woman. My parents are both born in Suriname, South America. That's my connection. And they met in Aruba, another former Dutch colony. And in 1963, they decided they wanted to go to America. As immigrants, they landed in New York City in the middle of the civil rights movement. Can you imagine? And they were looking for new opportunities, dreams that they wanted to fulfill. And they never went back to their homeland. And growing up, I always wanted to understand why. I was really, really confused by that, but it would take a long time before I ever got to go back to find out what really happened. Then, let's fast forward. In 2012, I came here to study. And I started with an experience at Black Europe Summer School. And immediately I discovered something. And what I discovered was that I totally missed half of the story about Black history, and particularly about Black Europe in history. I learned so many things about my family heritage and my ancestors, and I was so excited about this new knowledge that I had that I just couldn't wait to take it to the next experience, which is going to be at a Dutch university for a semester. But when I got to the Dutch university, I had a very different experience. Almost everything I had just learned was almost erased and silenced. I was really confused because I'm in a course about Dutch colonial history, post-colonial history, and colonialism, but we weren't talking about the colonies. We were only talking about Indonesia. Yeah, and we were only talking about this great trade and the Dutch, merchant skill and all of these things, and I was confused. I kept asking the question. I'm the one girl in the front. Excuse me, we're in colonial history, but we're not talking about the colonies? I'm not sure I understand. And because I had just been filled with all this new knowledge, this was really, really difficult for me to take. I was angry. I was really angry because I felt like my heritage was being completely cut off. Wasn't it important enough to include in a curriculum? But I got answers like, well, yes, but this doesn't really fit this program, or it happened a long time ago, or it happened out there and not here, so we're not including that. And that just wasn't good enough. So I decided to do something about it. I decided I was going to prove that our shared history, while we experienced it differently, was important enough for us to share with each other. And Black Heritage Amsterdam Tours was born. It was born because there was something missing and it wasn't there. And I was determined to create it. So we started. Black Heritage Amsterdam Tours is about Black history. Yes, Black history in Amsterdam in the 17th century. And it's also about our shared history. And we decided it was time for us to talk about this subject because we just kept acting as if it didn't matter. We don't demonize any one group or victimize another group. What we do is we create a space where we can walk through this doorway together and learn from each other. And guess what? Magic happens. I'll give you an example of magic. Magic happens when we're on a tour, and sometimes it gets pretty heated because we're having discussions. But somewhere in between, we're sharing our stories, someone always reveals something about themselves. One young lady who was on the tour, and this was the university, Amsterdam University, they came on a tour, and one young lady was being challenged by another Black person on the boat. She's like, I want to hear from the white students. I want to know exactly what are they thinking. This is all about Black people. Well, it is Black Heritage Tours, okay, but we give people room to express what they're feeling. So we handed this young lady who asked, she raised her hand, wanted to say something, and she said, I have something I've never shared with anyone except my family. And she looked like your regular white young lady. She was a student, and so all of her friends around were looking to see what is she going to say. And guess what she said? My great-grandfather was a former enslaved. Whoa. Nobody was expecting that. Just like as quiet as you are, the silence was deafening. But that was a moment that she felt she could share a part of her history, and all the people around her had to just embrace that. So that's one of those examples where our shared history comes together with our personal stories. And I'm reminded of Chimamanda Adichie, who's a Nigerian writer. She was just here a few weeks ago. And the problem, she says, with the single story is that not that it's wrong, but that it's incomplete. And by not sharing the other side of the story, we rob people of their dignity. And we talk more about how we're different and not about how we're similar. The challenge, though, I think we face is asking ourselves, what are we going to do? What are we going to do with this new information that we have? How are we going to change the world and create this new world for the next generation? We have to ask ourselves some very important questions. Number one, what are you willing to do? Each person in the room has a responsibility, but what are you willing to do? What risks, what sacrifice are you willing to make for someone else? Because we can sit here very comfortably in our seats and nothing changes. But we have to be willing to step outside of that. Talking about our shared history, another example of that one-sided story is we often hear, and this is something we get on each tour, where someone's always going to say, but there was always African slavery. Or another one of those examples is, yeah, but what about, there were serfs in Europe before slavery. Or, there's a number of things that we often hear. But what's the other side of that story? Yes, there might have been African slavery, but do we talk about the resistance? There was always resistance. Or do we talk about our past, like Imhotep, who was one of the first to deliver medicine and science to the world, long before there was ever even in Europe? So the problem with the single story is that it leaves out a large area of information that's equally as important. Black Heritage Tours is my contribution. It's just a little piece of what I bring to share with you. What's yours? I'm so proud to be a part of the speakers that have talked about what their contribution is. And I just encourage all of us to become time travelers, bringing our shared histories together, exploring new ways for us to talk about what the future will look like. And whatever perspective you come from, because we all have a story, but it's different. We've experienced our shared histories differently. But whatever point of view you come from, whatever your perspective is, remember, if nothing else about my talk, remember this one thing. Every side, every story has two sides. And Spinoza, a great philosopher from the Netherlands, said that even a thin slice has two sides. Thank you for taking this journey with me.